Now, when JP was in task unit bruiser, he was a kid. When we were in workup, I think he was 22 years old. When we deployed, he was 23 years old. And I loved JP. He was like a brother. And to be quite honest with you, he's like a little brother to me. And I loved his aggressiveness. And when we were going through workup, he would just straight up execute anything I told him to do. Anything. Like a hyper aggressive Terminator robot. I would look at him and I'd say, JP, take that room. Or JP, get on that high ground. Or JP, get those prisoners out of here. And he would just get after it and make it happen and just destroy or outmaneuver anything that was in his way. Like one time we were going through mount training, which is urban warfare. So we're in kind of a fake city with buildings and all this. And there was a building across the street and we were taking massive paintball fire. Again, it's just training, but we're getting shot up with paintball. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're if this is real, we're getting killed. And I know that we need to get aggressive to stop this. And say, I'm kind of give the command of, hey, we need to hit that building across the street. And as the last word is coming out of my mouth, I see JP just bust out of the door of the building we're in, go running across the street with his gun blazing, just caveman smash through the door of the target building, goes in there, and I just see muzzle flash as he's just machine gunning people. And I thought to myself, okay, JP can bring it. At least he can bring it during training. Because courage against paintball in training is actually not that big of a deal at all. In fact, it's borderline meaningless, but it is an indication. Now, courage in sustained combat is another thing. And JP proved himself as a true warrior over and over and over again during the Battle of Ramadi. And I'm honored to have my brother, JP Dinnell, on the podcast today. JP, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me here.
And we have to start with trying to understand where you come from.
How much time do we have?
Where you grew up and
Yeah.
and all that. And it's pretty cool. I mean, I know your mom and dad, and I've actually grappled against your dad.
Yeah. It's one of his highlights. He loves that. He talks about it all the time. Being
He's
able to roll with you.
strong man.
Scary strong.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and how old? So how old is he now?
he is 54, 55.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, he was my age.
Yeah.
So when I grappled with him, he was my age.
Yeah.
And I thought he was all old.
No.
And right now, if you called me old, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, I know you would be.
So, Mr. Dinnell, I apologize. I thought you were old back in the day.
Nope.
He grabbed a hold of my head
And you were my
almost
age
ripped it
that
off.
I am right now.
Oh, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. but
Yeah, no, that's
crazy.
true. So, tell us about where you come from. What was like growing up? All that stuff.
I had a good life. My parents are awesome, very hard workers. Grew up tight on money. My dad did construction and framing in the 80s, and my mom taught step aerobics. Not a lot of money there.
Get some.
But they constantly worked for our family. It was awesome. Now we, every Sunday we were at church, not having a lot of money to go out and do stuff. We'd go for drives. That's what we did. Our family would go for drives and just go, see the, we're in Northern California, Sacramento. Mm-hmm. Within 20 minutes, you can be in the foothills, and it's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. We go to my grandparents' property. My dad's parents were a very big part of our life as well growing up. Grandfather's old World War II vet, was on a destroyer. My grandmother's an amazing woman, wakes up every morning still at 5 a.m. to pray for everybody in the family. They have 5 acres up in the foothills, the pasture with horses. So for kids, it was awesome. Brother and sister. My parents, they didn't wait for having kids. I had me, and then, I think it was like 17 months later, my brother comes. Then 17 months later, after that, my sister comes. So, you know, I'm a dad. You know, I have kids.
Irish twins, they call that.
Yeah, it was just like boom, boom, boom. You know, awesome. You know, my brother and my sister are like two of my closest best friends still. You know, we just always used to grow up playing Navy SEALs. You know, and
where'd you get? Okay, so going into the next question, which I am always curious, is how did you hear about the teams?
Actually, my brother saw something on TV. There's some special about the forming of the SEALs and the, you know, JFK's speech and all this stuff, and he had my parents record it, and we would watch that every morning that we could. You know, we're young, you know, we're trying to go to school. My brother's popping that in the VCR, and so every weekend we definitely watched it, and then we would, you know, dress up in camis and paint our faces and stuff that we got from old Army Navy surplus store or just from garage sales, and we would go play Navy SEALs, you know, and we go up to my grandparents as like a haven, you know, and it's funny now, like I didn't know what I was doing, but I used to like do make up little ghillie suits, and I would have my parents drop me off at the front entrance of my grandparents' property. I'd wait until they got up to the house, and I'd say, "Hey, I want to see if you can see me sneaking up there." And I would try to stalk up to my grandparents' house.
Good training.
I mean, yeah, and you know, so that, you know, it was a really good life. You know, all my aunts and uncles and cousins, you know, we're all really close, and just really close family. You know, my uncle. One of my closest uncles, you know, he's a cop back where we grew up, and, you know, he's still serving the community. He's a legit badass. And, you know, so I was surrounded by a lot of good people that didn't know anything other than working hard. Mm-hmm. Like, you just have to work hard. There's no excuses for that. There's no handouts. Like, you've just got to get after it. And that's just kind of how I learned about the teams. And, you know, as you get older in high school, you kind of forget about that stuff. But yeah, it was a pretty good, solid base. Great life.
Did you enlist right out of high school, man?
Yeah. I was in my senior year of high school.
What, didn't you break your leg or have some weird situation?
I broke my hand.
Broke your hand.
Yeah, so my hand was in a cast.
How'd you do that?
Well, you know.
No, I just think it's interesting that you just told this story of this kind of, you know, picture perfect childhood with all this goodness around you. But I'll just going to straight up tell people, JP might crack a few people once in a while if they need it when he was a young kid.
Yeah. Definitely never went out looking for it and starting it, but if it was there, you know. Anyways, we're at a party with my buddies, and no, actually, we're just like kind of hanging out at the house, and I don't know, happened. Some guys showed up. Got in a fight, broke my hand. You know, like a smart young man, don't go to the hospital that night. My hand's like ballooning up. Well, you know, the next day we're going to go whitewater rafting.
Sounds like a good plan.
I mean, I can't not do that with all my friends. So I just put my hand in the river the whole time because I'm like, that's like ice, right? Mm-hmm. I get home. I thought my mom was going to just beat me. Mm-hmm. And she's a short, little, just thin, athletic woman. And I was just like terrified.
You were afraid she was going to do some step aerobics on your head.
Yes, exactly. She was going to get after it. So I go, you know, so she's like, yeah, we're going to the hospital. And so we go there, and they're like, yeah, you broke your knuckle, this bone, and fractured the wrist. And I'm like, okay. So I get in a cast. Of course, my dad's pissed off, you know. And he's just like, you know, it's my senior year. I'm getting close to graduation. Mm-hmm. And there was no talk of college. I played water polo my senior year, and one of the JCs my coach said, hey, you know, if you go to this JC, UC Davis, you know, you could be going over and playing over there. I just knew college wasn't what I wanted to do. At the time, it just wasn't for me. I wasn't going to waste time or money doing something I just wasn't driven to do. And, you know, my dad's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life? And I was like, I don't know, I'll probably be a whitewater rafting guide and live up in the mountains. And he's like, what are you going to do with your life? He's like, nothing wrong with that. But, you know, he's like, no, no. And because one of my best friends did that, and which it was just cool, chill lifestyle.
Seems cool, yeah.
It would be great for the soul, right? Yeah. And so anyways, my dad was like, what about the military? Like, what about being a Navy SEAL? You used to always talk about it. And at the time, all I could think about was just like the regular Fleet Navy recruiters that would come to high school. And this was pre 9/11, so nobody's really very motivated. And, you know, they would come to the high school, but they never really engaged with the students or anything. So I was like, that's the Navy? I don't know. I go to work that next day, and because I'm in a cast, they had me at the front register. And for the first time ever, I noticed across the street is a Navy recruiting office. I was like, I'll go in there. So I went in there, and of course, they're like, oh, what are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. What are you here for? I was like, I was thinking about joining the Navy. Want to be a Navy SEAL. They all start laughing. I was like, check. I was pissed. Like, I was like real mad. They're like, well, you know, all the SEAL wannabes have to talk to petty officer so-and-so. And yeah, that dude, when he said the SEAL wannabe part, I was fired up. And then he goes, and we can't do anything with your cast on. I'm like, all right, roger that. They're like, you know, if you want to come talk to him, he'll be on Thursday. It was on Tuesday. So I go back to work. I'm just staring at the Navy recruiting office the whole time, just stewing. So I'm like, dude, I'm in good shape. You know, like I'm a very good athlete. Like I can do this. And go back home and tell my dad. My dad's like, hey, how's work? Am I good? I was like, hey, I'm joining the Navy, and I can't go do anything for boot camp with this cast on. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, I'm leaving for boot camp tomorrow, something like that, right? And so he's like, cool, go start the bathtub, start soaking it. I'll get some tools out of the garage. And so my dad comes in there, and he has like some like sheet metal shears and something else, a Sawzall.
Yeah.
And we just got after it, and we cut off my cast. Dude, I thought my mom was going to beat my dad. Like, she was like, what? And of course I was like, yeah, I'm joining the Navy. I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. So all of a sudden I cut off my cast, and now her baby boy's leaving to, you know, go join the military. And she's my poor mom, you know? And so I go back on Thursday. I walk in, they look at me, they look at my cast not being there. They're like, you need to talk to Petty Officer so-and-so. I'm like, all right, roger that. And so that just started the rest of the process. And, you know, a lot of rehab. My parents had a cafe. They sold that. So me and my dad could do construction together to spend as much time together as possible. And my mom was able to spend time with her mom that was passing away. And that's how I rehabbed my hand. And my dad would actually wrap my hand up in some of my old kickboxing wraps and boxing wraps, tape it up, and then we would tape the hammer to my hand because I couldn't grip it. Like, I could not grip anything. And you know, that's what he did. Because I'd see my old man go to work with a cast on, and he would have to tape tools to his cast to work.
I mean, your dad's not the kind of guy that's going to let broken limbs stop him from getting a good day's work in. No, you just tape that tool to your body and make something happen.
So that's what he did with me. And it was awesome. And he knew, like, I wanted to go to Buds, and I was going to go to Buds. And so he would push me to my absolute limit every day at work. Like, I mean, every day. I mean, I would be pissed, sometimes borderline crying because I was so mad. Not like tears of like, you know, pain or whatever, but I was so mad at him. And he'd see it, and he'd throttle back a little bit, and he'd make me go. You know, some days, like, I'd come in to work hungover sometimes, and he would be like, hey, I need you to go rent a 90-pound jackhammer. There was no need for a 90-pound jackhammer.
Yes, there is. He needs to jackhammer your brain back
exactly.
into reality.
And so for 8 hours, I would be jackhammering concrete with a 90-pound jackhammer while he was doing what he was doing. And then, I mean, it was awesome, though. I mean, he would push me to the absolute limit. And my mom and him were awesome with communications and helping me out with stuff. And it was good. And so then I left September 5th, 2001. I had a SEAL contract.
Dang.
I was in Buds. I was in boot camp when 9/11 happened. And, you know, it was just weird. I was so pissed.
Did they tell you guys about it?
Yeah, we were on lockdown. And they're like, hey, the nation's being attacked. We'll give you guys more info. And we're like, what? Of course, you have all the weak-minded people in there that start crying. Like, I'm 18, right?
Yeah.
Like, barely 18. And there's just grown men crying. Like, I didn't sign up for this. I'm like getting fired up. Like, you need to shut up, sit down. Like, I'm just
JP's looking for a battle axe at this point.
Yeah, I'm like, how do I go to Buds right now? Do I have to finish boot camp? Can I just go, you know? But yeah, so I was in boot camp when 9/11 happened, and I always felt like, well, I didn't feel like, I knew that being a Navy SEAL is what I needed to do and what I wanted to do, and it's what God wanted me to do. And just everything just fell into place. You know, it was pretty awesome. So